This is the Fantasy Ladder Podcast, episode 43. I'm your host, Steve at Fantasy Ladder. This podcast is brought to you by the IDP Guys YouTube channel. So, welcome back once again, my fantasy football friends and family. Let's climb the ladder of fantasy football together. So, the NFL playoffs are here. This is not going to be as much of a fantasy football show, but more of just a regular football chat show, as we are going to be previewing all of the teams and all of the matchups of the wild card round. This is part one. So part two will include the rest of the teams minus the Buccaneers. But either way, we are going to be hitting the Bills, the Ravens, the Jaguars, the Chargers, and the Eagles tonight. What their postseason prospects are going to look like here, including looking at the matchups of the weekend. So without further ado, I'm going to bring everyone on one by one here, starting with Bob. So, Bob, tell people where they can find you and let us hear about the team you're representing and your plugs, please.
All right, shameless plugs. All right, yeah. So you can find me at DynastyBobFF over on Twitter. I'm with DynastyProsFootball.com, which Steve, you are a part of as well. That's really about it. I'm here representing my Baltimore Ravens. It's gonna be an interesting Sunday night. Let's just put it that way.
It will, and we'll hear more of those thoughts, hopefully more optimistic sounding, in just a little while, for sure. And now we are going to bring on Brandon. So, Brandon, welcome into the show.
Thanks for having me. And you can find me on Twitter at HeyB3. I work with Steve at IDP Guys. Some plugs for that. I'll be doing some podcast shows about rookie previews, working on rookies for the rookie mag that we have, and just different offensive articles in the off season. And I'm going to be representing the Jacksonville Jaguars, Duval. So very exciting times in Jacksonville right now.
Yeah, I love it. Yeah, you're a busy guy for the website in season. Then it occurred to me that you're a big Devi guy as well. So you got a lot of awesome content coming out here, Brandon. So I'm looking forward to that. And of course, looking forward to the Jaguars too. It's a very exciting time, but we will talk about that in just a little bit here. So welcome on. We now will bring on Darren. So what's going on, Darren?
Hey, how's it going, Steve? Thanks for having me on.
Of course.
Doing some work at Dynasty Pros with yourself and Bob. You can find me at FF Bird Gang on Twitter. Also follow us on Instagram, Dynasty Pros account at Dynasty Pros Football.
I love it. Yeah. Welcome back to the show. Bob and Darren, of course. You remember them from their shows over the summer. And we'll be bringing on Dustin, who was on the pod. I think it was week 9 or 12 or something like that. It was
something
a few
like
weeks
that.
back,
yeah.
but welcome back, Dustin. And where can people find you?
Yeah, you can find me on Twitter at the DUnit13. And upcoming, I'll be doing some work, some videos with the guys over at Front Office Pros. We're currently in a Dynasty Best Ball Startup Draft. We're co-managing a team, so we're going to be breaking down our draft, our thought processes on that. So you'll be seeing videos every couple picks. We'll shoot a video and post kind of our thoughts of who we picked and why, and our thought process in this Dynasty Best Ball Startup Draft. And I am, of course, representing the best team, the Bills, America's team now.
Well, I think a lot of us would agree with you there, and not the Cowboys. But we don't need to talk about them. We'll say that for part 2. But yes. Yeah, well, welcome back, and can't wait to hear your thoughts on the Bills. And of course, we have Tim. So, Tim, welcome back to the show. Of course, we remember Tim from his discussion of the Chargers over the summer. But Tim, introduce yourself and what you got going on.
Happy to be here. You can find me all over TikTok, YouTube, whatever. NFL Lazenby, it's all the same. It used to be just football content. Now it's pretty much whatever I feel like. I've been doing a bunch of hockey stuff lately just because it floats my boat. I also work for DynastyProsFootball.com. You can also find Dynasty Pros on YouTube at Dynasty Pros. Nice and sweet and simple. I cheer for the best team, the Chargers. I'm apparently Brandon's mortal enemy, and I'm happy to be here, man.
I love it. Yeah, I'm really glad. That the Chargers were in the playoffs, so you could come back on. This is great. But yeah, so we're going to get to each of the teams here in just a minute. I just wanted to summarize what's going on here for the first round of the playoffs. Of course, it is the wild card weekend. First seed buys, we'll start with that. The Philadelphia Eagles, of course, and the Kansas City Chiefs. So they get a very needed week off here to prepare and await their matchups. But the action will start on Saturday with the Seahawks at the 49ers. Game has an over-under currently at 42.5, and the 49ers are clear home favorites at 9.5. Then we have the Chargers at Jacksonville. Over under that game's a bit higher, 47.5, with the Chargers favored at -2. Sunday's slate, we got the Dolphins at the Bills. That has had some line movement here over the last couple of days. Tua Tagovailoa has been ruled out, so more on that in a bit. But the Bills are favored here at 13, so heavy home favorites with an over-under at 43.5. And then the middle game is Giants at Minnesota. Vikings are favored -3, over-under set at 48. Then Sunday night will be the contest between the Baltimore Ravens at the Cincinnati Bengals. A lot of movement in that line as well. It is now set at -8.5, favoring the Bengals, with the over-under at 40.5 points. On Monday night, we had the Dallas Cowboys favored on the road at Tampa Bay, over-under set at 45.5, with the Cowboys favored at 2.5 at this point. So definitely a very exciting slate here of playoff matchups. Some are going to be potentially a little bit lopsided. Some may be a little bit closer here. So we'll see everyone's thoughts in a moment. But we will be starting off with the mighty Buffalo Bills. So Dustin, take it away. Before you take it away, just wanted to mention, of course, his continued prayers for DeMar Hamlin and everyone around him. But other than that, Dustin, please tell me about the Bills. What are you most confident in, and what are you least confident in heading into this matchup against the Dolphins?
Obviously, I'm most confident in Josh Allen. Against the Dolphins, the 2 games this year, 67 completions out of 103 attempts, 704 yards, 3 touchdowns in this game, no interceptions. Over his last 6 games, he has 14 touchdowns. So he's coming in pretty hot. He finally looks healthy. It looks like that elbow is no longer giving him an issue. I don't see how the Dolphins can stop Josh Allen. I think the only issue would be Josh Allen stopping Josh Allen. But I'm confident in him coming forward, going forward, playing with that emotion. If you haven't had a chance, check out Kyle Brandt's Basement. He does a segment with Josh Allen, came out, I think, yesterday or today. Just talked about that preparedness and how they're ready to play going forward. And I'm really confident about that. I'm least confident in 2 things. 1, the Bills' run defense, and 2, our ability to cover Jalen Waddle. In the 2 games against the Bills, Waddle had 6 targets, 4 receptions, 107 yards in week 3, 7 targets, 3 receptions, 114 yards, and a touchdown in the second game. He hasn't played great with Skylar Thompson, which is why it's not that big of a concern. He's had 5 targets in both games, caught 3, caught 5. 52 yards, 44 yards in the past 2 games. So not outstanding with Skylar Thompson, who's probably going to start this week. But I'm more concerned about the run defense. Week 15 against the Dolphins, Mostert ran for 102 yards on 19 carries, and Salvon Ahmed had 43 yards on 6 carries. We're giving up 92.2 yards per game in the past 6 games in rushing. So the Dolphins can run on the Bills, which has been and continues to be a weak point in their defense. Obviously, they dealt with some issues. So I'm concerned about that, but I still think we have the firepower to overcome this slow, methodical running game the Dolphins might have. But we definitely have to learn to stop the run if we're going to progress in the postseason.
Yeah, the loss of Von Miller really can't be understated. It was a big time addition to the team, and it just stinks, to lose a player of that caliber, who could contribute to, helping out with that weakness in the run game. But obviously a big loss there for the Bills, but the losses for the Dolphins just seem to be piling up here. So
Yes.
Tua Tagovailoa has been ruled out. Raheem Mostert broke his thumb in Week 18. I mean, he may still be able to play, just maybe some ball security issues, but it may be a lot of Jeff Wilson.
The Bills
And
haven't
then,
seen Jeff Wilson yet, so that's
oh,
we
okay,
haven't seen Jeff Wilson at all. He didn't play in the Week 15 game, so and then Tyreek Hill also has, I think, an ankle issue, so there's some concern there, which I think could shift it to Waddle a little bit more, who's had the better games against the Bills.
Gotcha. So this one to me seems like the surest bet of the Bills winning. Do you think there is a case that the Dolphins can pull an upset, or do you just not see that happening?
I mean, you could make a case, right? Any given Sunday, a team can win. What I see the case being is turnovers. So in the 2 games, Buffalo has had 6 fumbles. They've lost 2. Miami's only had 1 fumble, not lost any. I can see a case where if we lose a fumble and the Bills get behind, they're playing with a lot of emotional energy right now, obviously with Damar Hamlin. But if they start getting behind, the energy actually works against them because they start pressing so hard because they want to win for Damar. They want to proceed. They want that ring for Damar. That if they get down a touchdown or 10 points, like they're going to be overreaching and overextending themselves, right? You're going to see guys on defense playing out of position, right? They're going to be trying to make plays where they should just, hold their gap, hold the edge. Josh Allen will be trying to make throws he probably shouldn't make. So there is that case of if those fumbles or those turnovers start skewing, because obviously it's, the way the ball bounces with the fumble, if those skew towards the Dolphins, you could see a case where the Bills and that emotional energy just becomes too much. And then late in the game, that could just be deflating for them when they're like, we're not going to pull this out for Damar. I think that energy catapults them to a win in the beginning, and I don't see it happening that way, but you could make the case that could happen.
Gotcha. Yeah. An under, stated part of the game is like controlling the clock and special teams and things like this. Just a couple weeks ago, just to touch on the Eagles real quick, against against the New Orleans Saints, the Saints started the game with like a 9-minute drive,
Yep.
and the Eagles were playing from like behind that whole game, like because they just did these little chunk plays, and it was just completely ridiculous. It threw the whole rhythm of the game off. So I think a lot would have to go right in the Dolphins' way of handling the clock in that case.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a pretty outrageous, situation as far as I'm concerned. But like you said, I think any given Sunday. But to me, this seems to be the surest matchup of the slate, just because of the potential quarterback matchups there. Yeah, for sure. Now,
go
ahead.
I do think that's a big question mark. Like the secondaries for the Bill, obviously that's Damar Hamlin's position. Like he plays with those guys. They have a little more extra juice in the game, and they know they're playing a third stringer, so they're going to come out there, and that's going to be a key matchup to watch. Also, I think the offensive line versus the defensive line, the Bills' defensive line versus the Miami offensive line, if they can create those rushing holes without Von Miller, without some of those, Ed Oliver really has to step up. Greg Rousseau has to step up. And that could be that win in the trenches is really what's going to be pivotal here. But I do think the defensive backs for Buffalo trying to make plays on Kyler Thompson, trying to jump routes when they just need to play smart football. They don't need to make big plays. We don't need big plays to win. It's not about how we win. We just need to win.
Perfect. So say they get through Miami. What is your overall prediction for the Bills in this postseason here? Like, do you think winning the Super Bowl is a reasonable expectation? Like, what are your predictions for the Bills? And overall, who do you think would end up winning the postseason here?
I mean, the Bills have the toughest path. If they win, they're going to have to play Cincinnati, and then they have to play Kansas City most likely in the championship game, which will be neutral. Either way, they're basically playing Cincinnati next week. Like that's a given. They're the 3 seed. They're going to be the highest seed available. So Kansas City's going to get the lowest seed available. So we're getting Cincinnati, which we don't know what that game's going to look like because we saw 2 drives of it, right? Like we don't know how we match up. It's been a good year for the Bills. The Bills could have started out really bad. They started out the season against like the Rams. They had Rams, Titans, Dolphins, Ravens, Steelers, Kansas City. Like we could have started 2-4, but we started 5-1. So they've proven against some of these big teams. We proved it against the Rams, who were the Super Bowl champs. We proved it against the Titans and Derrick Henry. We proved it against Kansas City. So I think they have that in the back of their minds. But it's a tough road to go. Dolphins, division rival, probably our most hated rival, Cincinnati, Kansas City. I do like that it's going to be a neutral site game. Probably in Atlanta seems to be where they're going to have that game at, seems to be the thing. So We may see a large contingency of the biggest Bills backer group is in Orlando, Florida, so they may travel to that game. So we may see a heavy Bills contingency there, but it's a tough road. But I do think Super Bowl is the realistic expectation. It has been all season. I think that's where they're headed. I think they're all just believing in like it's going to break that way for them, just because the way everything has broken for them after Damar Hamlin. Like when you see Nyheim Hines run that kickoff, the opening kickoff back for a touchdown, and then see Josh Allen in the press conference when he hears that it's been 3 years and 3 months. Like to him, it was just like, that's a spiritual. He even said, he's like, this is a spiritual moment. Like, I don't understand it. He's like, God couldn't have written it up any better. I think that's their thought process. Like, man, we're like a team of destiny almost, which can get in their way. But I think against Cincinnati, they're going to get punched in the mouth, and it's going to be a hard fought battle. And then I think they're going to go into Kansas City and go into Atlanta or wherever they're playing and go, we've beaten these guys, we can do it. So it's a hard road, but I do think it's Super Bowl or bust for the Bills.
Gotcha. And I think that's fair. For sure. Well, I appreciate your thoughts, Dustin, and best of luck to the Bills, unless, of course, they end up facing the Eagles. But yes,
that's
I
what we're
appreciate
hoping
your
for. Bills Eagles Super Bowl. I'd love.
Oh no, it would be fantastic for the average viewer, for sure. Yeah, well, I would happen to be rooting for that as well. So we will see. All right, so moving on to the next matchup. Bob, take it away with your Baltimore Ravens.
Oh gosh, where do I begin? I think they have just a little bit of drama. I mean, this whole Lamar situation is completely up in the air. I think he kind of tested out his knee a little bit today. Didn't really work out. It's apparently some swelling still going on there. Lots of speculation out there that, there's little personal issues there, that he's not going to play. He's not going to, be on the field again until he gets paid.
Okay. Interesting.
A lot of speculation out there for that. I mean, this has turned into 5 missed games, 5 weeks. And, and earlier in the season, I think even in the preseason, when I was doing some shows, I predicted that Lamar would miss a chunk of this year due to a knee injury. And not that was kind of weird and everything, he missed some time last season as well, but a lot of people, was putting out there how much he bulked up this offseason. I mean, he put on like over 20 pounds of muscle. And, if you're not really ready for that, if your body's not built for that, and as much stress as he puts on his knees, ligaments and everything there, I was very, very concerned about a possible knee injury. Luckily, it wasn't like an ACL or anything, but I was very, very scared for that. And so this injury doesn't necessarily surprise me. However, if it is contract related and he just doesn't want to play again until he's paid, it's probably 50-50 out there. Some people would agree with him, and, Baltimore fans would not. They want to see him get on the field. I mean, he's our best chance of winning. I mean, we were averaging almost 30 points a game this season when he's on the field, and we're averaging 13 points a game or something with Tyler Huntley. I mean, it's a drastic difference. And so heading into Sunday night, who knows? I personally don't see Lamar playing, and I think Vegas sees it that way as well, because every day now that line jumps up more and more and more. That spread is just getting further apart.
Yep.
So yeah, it does not look like Lamar's playing, and Tyler Huntley, on the other hand, is not throwing. He has tendonitis. He's got a shoulder issue. He practiced today, but he did not throw the football, and he's not really a great passer to begin with. So if he's got shoulder issues going into Sunday night, holy moly! If they played less than a week ago, and Baltimore's defense does match up well with them, but they can't put any points on the board. So that's what's going to hurt. That's what.
Yeah, I basically have a similar concern. I just kind of go off of your point. 6 straight weeks of scoring less than 20 points. And if they're going to hang with the Bengals, they basically need to put points on the board unless they can, get some turnovers and try to control the clock. Because, I mean, it's hard you can't really say how it went in week 18 is how it's going to be this week. Because there's no J.K. Dobbins, there's no Mark Andrews in that game. Obviously, to keep them fresh for the playoffs because they were already guaranteed. but it is an unfortunate thing because they're such a well-coached team, very strong defense still, mostly, and then just 2 years in a row here of just really tough injuries have to overcome. So this season did not get a lot of Rashad Bateman, still didn't get a ton of J.K. Dobbins until like mid-season or so, and then even at that it was kind of shaky at best. And of course, without Lamar, it's just tough. It's a really tough thing. But how about Calais Campbell? Is he going to be available
Yeah.
this
Campbell's
weekend?
going to
Okay.
go. It's going to go. You were talking about these injuries and these players getting sat and everything. I read something the other day that was kind of wild. And it was like, in the last 2 years, well, I don't know. I think it was just a stat that said that there's not been a time that the Ravens have had Lamar, J.K., Ronnie Stanley, Rashad Bateman, and someone else on the field at the same time. That
Oh my
unit
gosh.
has never played, on the same field together during the game. So that's kind of wild. What could
Jeez.
be. So
All these first and second round investments and they can't play together. It's not ideal, but it is just an unbelievably well coached team, and I guess it doesn't look great. I guess like the chances going into this game against the Bengals, but this is one of these things. It's like, well, it's better for the Ravens to be in than I guess like the Steelers to be in, right? So it's one of those things. But yeah, it is a unfortunate draw, if you will. And I really do hope that Lamar is able to play. But I guess if there's a little something behind the scenes about the contract, then that's a whole other hurdle to overcome. So that's too bad.
absolutely.
Yeah. Um, so say the Ravens don't make it through. Who would be your prediction for the Super Bowl winner of this season from what we know at this point of what we've seen so far across the league?
Well, I think if I was predicting right now, I would go Philly over Buffalo. So I know
Oh,
you have already spoken a little bit about Philly versus Buffalo. I don't know how you could not, pick those two as of right now. But I would have Philadelphia over them. I just think that the pass rush and the defensive line would be the difference there. I think they put enough pressure on Josh Allen to kind of hold them, and I think the Philly will have no problem putting up points against that defense. So anyway, but yeah, I don't know what to expect this way. I mean, Baltimore Baltimore can play very, very well against the Bengals. I mean, they've held Joe Burrow they've held him in check both times, both meetings this year. I think back in week 5, they held him to 217 yards passing. That's it.
okay, yeah,
He only had one passing touchdown, I guess, and that was like Hayden Hurst, kind of a little garbage time touchdown in the end. The Ravens end up winning that game. Jamar Chase only had 50 yards receiving in that one. So, and then this past week, the Bengals did put up 27 points, but Baltimore was resting all their starters. So that offense just couldn't move the ball. And, so Cincy's offense was on the field quite a bit. However, Burrow was still only held to 215 yards passing, and he had one touchdown to Jamar Chase. So, Jamar actually had a pretty decent game. T. Higgins only had one catch for 7 yards.
yeah.
So I
Yep.
really, really like, Mixon had 27 yards rushing. He did have a touchdown in that one, but the big thing here is that Baltimore's defense can hang with them. They've beaten them once this year. Their defense is better now than it was in week 5 with the acquisition of Roquan.
Yep, of course.
And just, Kyle Hamilton and guys like that playing a lot better, with a little bit more experience. So, some of the key players in that game, obviously, Lamar doesn't look like he's playing. So Tyler Huntley, if he does play, I can't see them putting up enough points to outscore them. They are going to have to run the ball. I think if they have any shot at this, they are going to have to run the ball like early and often. I mean, Kenyon Drake, I believe, had 60 yards last week against them and I believe a touchdown. So J.K. Dobbins is a lot more explosive and has quite a bit better, vision in the backfield. So I'm really excited to see what he can do Sunday night. But I think in order for Baltimore to have any chance at all, they're going to have to run the ball and keep Burrow and keep that offense, on ice on that field and just play a dirty, nasty, sloppy, boring game and keep
Yep.
them, keep that ball. And, and things got chippy the other night when they were playing. And a lot of Cincinnati players have been barking all week saying Baltimore was playing dirty towards the end of the game, taking cheap shots, diving at knees and doing things like that. So a lot of these Cincinnati players say we owe them, we're not going to forget this. We owe them, next week. So I kind of hope they do. I hope they take their mind off the game. If Baltimore can get in their head and kind of take them out of their comfort zone, then maybe they will have a little bit of a shot. But that's it. That's a big, big if. I don't think that they can win because they just throw the ball too much. I don't get it. They want to throw because they have been absolutely incredible running the ball, but they just abandon it for no reason. It's like they just somebody's playing Madden and no one wants to, when somebody's playing Madden, they don't want to just run. They just want to keep throwing. And
Right.
So that's what it's like watching a Ravens game right now. So if, the stars align and Lamar does play, I kind of actually predict the Ravens will beat them. And I kind of would say maybe like a 27-23 ball game there, but I don't see him playing. So I've got the Ravens losing probably like 30-20. So I don't have the highest hopes if Tyler Huntley's in there, unless they, like I said, just play an ugly, dirty, just grind it out, run the ball. That's their only chance.
Yeah, no, I think that's a very fair assessment. I know you're a very passionate and confident Ravens fan, but it just seems like it's very grounded right now, just because you see what the reality of the situation is. But
yeah, I'm not going to the game.
Yeah.
I was going to go to the game, especially if Lamar was playing, but now that he's not,
Oh, gotcha.
Every time I go to Cincinnati, I get in fights. Every time. It's inevitable. I mean,
Gotcha.
So yeah, I'm gonna avoid that. I'm gonna sit on the couch and
you just stay warm. You can stay warm in your house and not worry about the cold and and all that fun stuff.
Absolutely, yeah.
Gotcha. Yeah, and no fights. So that's good. But yeah, I appreciate your perspective, Bob, and thanks for coming on.
Absolutely.
All right, we're gonna move on to the Jaguars. So Brandon, coming into this season, I for one was very, very excited for the hire of Doug Peterson. I figured probably the best case scenario for Trevor Lawrence after just the whole previous coach, Urban Meyer fiasco and everything else. I thought it was going to be more of a long-term benefit. I was not anticipating this quick of a turnaround to have them be the AFC South champions. So your thoughts on that and your thoughts on the matchup this weekend?
Yeah, so a lot of the things they did in the offseason, I wasn't totally on board with. Paying Christian Kirk that much and Zay Jones, I wasn't totally sure that was the best thing. But I do know as a Jags fan, they have to overpay players to come here. It's just in the past, they've overpaid the wrong players. And it looks like at least early on, they paid the right players. They, are having career years, including Evan Ingram. And it was interesting because early on, there was a lot of hype. They played very well early on. They did beat the Chargers earlier in the year. And then they were up on the Eagles, early in that first quarter. And then things kind of fell apart. And then we saw, they came back against the Raiders, but they were losing a bunch of games. And, at least for me, I thought the season was over. And it was kind of get the young guys, get ETN and Trevor some time. We'll go to next season. But then they started getting hot. And I'll be honest, I know that it was a mess last year with Urban Meyer, but there are certain things that Trevor did, in the games I was just a little worried about because he seemed very inaccurate. He didn't seem to have like those go-to moments. So I always thought he could be a good quarterback, but in these last second half of the year, he's kind of brought back the thought, especially in Jacksonville, that he can be elite, and he's doing a lot of things. In this last game against the Titans, he kind of reverted a little bit. A lot of people, in Jacksonville and in town have said that the moment might have been a little too big for the offense because early on, there was, that trick play that went horribly wrong, which I don't understand. You're driving the ball. I don't know why you even run that play. I know they like to get the ball to Jamal Agnew. He's a great athlete. But they were moving the ball, and Trevor missed a couple throws, especially the one wide open to Zay Jones in the end zone.
Yep.
But I think it was good because the defense showed that, they saved the game for them late in that fourth quarter before that fumble. I didn't think they would be able to do that. So, they definitely, the season had its ups and downs, but you definitely see the promise with the team. I am a little concerned about how they will deal in a playoff game. It's a night game, so it's going to be very, very hyped up and everything there. Hopefully, the team doesn't get the emotions too high. I think it's really important for the offense to score early, get the crowd excited, and everything. And I kind of want to go back to that Chargers game earlier in the year in LA, because historically the Jags do horrible on the West Coast. They usually get blown out by like 40 points. So, but Keenan Allen and Mike Williams didn't play in that game. Justin Herbert was dealing with the ribs. Obviously, I don't know if Mike Williams is going to play because I saw he didn't practice today, and he got injured last game, which I think is huge because our second quarter corner, Darius Williams, is a smaller corner, so they could have really taken advantage of that. So another thing that I think in this game, I think that game gave the Jets some confidence, but I think it's a totally different, matchup with Keenan Allen back. I think one thing that the Jaguars will need to do is run the ball much better because the Chargers gave up 200 yards last week and just have not been very good at stopping the run. Last week, the Titans shut down Travis Etienne, so it's all passing. And if the Jags cannot pass the ball against the Chargers this week, I think with Bosa and Khalil Mack and all those guys, it's going to make it very hard. And the Jags offensive line has to play a lot better than they did against the Titans. I think the receivers can get open against the Chargers. Trevor just has to hit them. I will be interested with Evan Ingram because he's kind of had, a rebirth there in the second half of the season. But the Chargers actually play really well against tight ends. They are only giving up all season 10 fantasy points per game. And in the last 4 weeks, they're top 5 against tight ends. I assume Derwin James could spend some time on Evan Ingram so he would match up well. So interested in that part because we know that Doug Peterson loves to go to the tight end. And I think on the Chargers side, I think I actually wanted the Jags to play the Ravens instead of the Chargers just because the Jags defense matches up way better against running teams. And, I think the Titans, even with Josh Dobbs last week, the Titans probably should have continued throwing the ball a little more because they were having some success with normal passing plays. But they were just trying to salt that game away, which I somewhat understand.
Right.
I think the Chargers could be very successful with Austin Eckler, obviously out of the backfield. Oluokun and Devin Lloyd sometimes have trouble in coverage, so you could get him out there. And also Keenan Allen, with a quick passing game, and even Gerald Everett, the Jags, historically, no matter what coaching staff, they've had trouble against tight ends. But I definitely think this game is going to be a total different game than the Titans. You said the over-under was 47. I would take the over. I think it's going to be a high-scoring game. And it could very well be the last team that has the ball could win. And it's going to be interesting, too, because both coaches love to go for it on fourth down. So there might not be an attempted field goal in this game. And it might be, the winner might be the coach that makes the right decision on on those analytics fourth down calls.
Yeah, no, I think the key to this game is going to be the Jacksonville offensive line and how they can hold up with the defensive front of the Chargers, because that'll potentially affect the running game. And then basically, if I was the Chargers, I would just take a look at what the Titans did. It just provided a lot of pressure on Trevor that kind of got him off his rhythm and stuff. So hopefully they can make those adjustments. But would you say you're fairly confident, neutral, or not so confident in terms of the Jags winning this one?
I really think, like the line, it's, it was one, that might be two now. I think it's kind of a coin toss,
Sure.
in
Yeah.
this game. Obviously, at home and everything, it's going to be, the energy is going to be great there. But there's always a worry that, if they come out flat, obviously, I think the Chargers could jump on them, because this Chargers team is totally different from what it was early in the season. But we've seen also this Chargers team sometimes comes out flat itself. It doesn't score as well. I don't know, their motivation last week, but they did play the starters for, well into three quarters, and they struggled against the Broncos. And Russell Wilson was able to run around a little bit, kind of like Trevor likes to do, made some throws, out of the pocket. So that will be some big things too. But I think it's, it's definitely a toss-up. I don't feel super confident, but I also feel like they have a great chance. So it's probably, I would give us a 55% chance. Got to give us above 50 since I live in Jacksonville.
Oh, there you go. Perfect. Yeah, I think win or lose this weekend, I think the Jaguars fans should be extremely encouraged, like long term, right? So it's definitely a good step in the right direction. So if they come out of this weekend with a win or a loss, definitely feel very good about the years ahead. Could be an official changing of the guard there in the AFC South, just with Tannehill getting a little older, and the Colts are a mess. The Texans, well, I guess the Colts are just like a quarterback away, but still, it may be a couple years there. But the Texans are just who the heck knows. But yeah, so I think win or lose, you guys should be feeling pretty good. Say Jags lose, who would you be rooting for, or who would you be rooting for in the Super Bowl if not for the Jags, and who do you think will win the Super Bowl?
Okay, so first, who I'd be rooting for, I think like everyone, with the Bills and everything that's happened, I have a lot of friends that are, from Buffalo Bills fans, so I already have a little bit, of rooting interest. But then everything that's happened,
Of course.
and then that heartbreak last year when Josh Allen like willed them, and then all that, and obviously with Kansas City, winning a Super Bowl recently, also the Eagles winning a Super Bowl recently. And everyone else in the NFC don't really, necessarily care for. But I personally think it's going to come down to Philly and Kansas City.
Okay.
Right now, I just can't, bet against Patrick Mahomes. I mean, he's making it work, and they are running the ball better than they have in the past. And I think that could be a big thing. If the game was in Buffalo, if they were able to get that home field advantage, I'd probably lean Buffalo. But not being there, I think Kansas City can play in the neutral location and still be able to put up points. And their defense has played better this year.
For sure. Yeah, I like that. All right. Sounds good. I appreciate your thoughts, and best of luck to the Jags for sure. All right, we are moving on to the other side of that matchup. So, Tim, tell us about the Chargers and what you're most confident in and what you're least confident in going up against the Jags.
Fun fact, there's a set of articles out. One of them is out for the NFC predictions for the wild card. The AFC is written. It's not out yet, but it will be out. So all my thoughts for all the games are on those articles. But I'll tell you, I was praying to sweet baby Jesus that Tennessee held on to that game, because I don't want to play the Jags. I agree with Brandon completely. I see this game being like almost a 50-50. I mean, they played each other, and Jacksonville just smacked us around at home. It was terrible. But I have to discount that game a little bit, because we lost Rashawn Slater that game. We lost Joey Bosa that game. We lost Jalen Kite in that game. We seemed to lose half our team in that one game against the Jags. Herbert had his broken rib. It's all people are probably sick and tired of Chargers fans saying injuries or this and injuries or that. But I mean, you got to discount something. But for me, it really comes. Firstly, it's really exciting to see Doug Peterson back. That's super exciting for me. Jacksonville's been somewhat of a joke for a long time, despite having some talented players. So it's sick to see him back. I'm an Evan Engram truther. and a Christian Kirk truther. So for me, it's been really
There you go.
exciting to see both of those guys doing what they're doing. And it's really exciting to see Trevor Lawrence and Justin Herbert both in their first playoff appearances. So it's like it's the battle of the hair in our wild card game. Their luscious locks are flowing. So it's really exciting. This to me, my team and the Jaguars are very similar. We both have a really good defense when they want to show up. We both have a very high-powered offense, especially in the passing game. We both have really good pass-catching running backs. There's a lot of similarities on these teams. For me, it's going to come down to the running backs. That's like the secret sauce in this game, honestly. The Chargers, their last 5 games, they've done much better. This game against Denver is a little you can't take it at face value. So if you look at the stats, it looks terrible. But if you're watching that game, in the first half until the very last play, Russell Wilson only had it was like 5 passing yards. It was insanely stupid. And almost all of the rushing yards came off 2 plays. So the defense was really dominant, even though its stat sheet doesn't look that way at all. So the last 5 games, they had a 4-game winning streak, and then they lost against Denver. But they've been playing very well, unbiasedly. I know there's a bias alert here. Whatever happens, I agree with Brandon completely. This is going to be a high offensive game on both sides, and I also see it coming down to the wire. Obviously, I'm going to predict my Chargers, but I think it's going to be like a game-winning drive to a field goal to win this game on either side. I look forward to it. It's nice to finally have my guys back and healthy. Mike Williams may not play, but I mean, just missing Williams is a lot better than what we've had all year. So we'll see what happens.
Gotcha. I love that. Yeah. So the running backs may be the difference maker in this one. So that'll be a very interesting thing to look out for. Now, I remember back in the summer, I think you had predicted that the Chargers would make it to the Super Bowl.
I did.
I think you were saying that they are at least capable of it. Do you still feel that way? With the path ahead, with how the seeding has worked out, do you think that that's still a possibility, or who would you think would be able to take the Super Bowl this year?
Firstly, if I'm being just myself, I'll never bet against the Chargers ever.
Oh, perfect.
It's a moral decision you make as a fan, right? But if I'm being unbiased, if I'm looking just strictly as an analyst here, I still think the Chargers have a very good chance. They're getting usually a team gets injured near the end. The Chargers are getting healthy at the end, which is quite a strange phenomenon. So these last 5-6 games or so, that's more of what I expect from the Chargers. They played some paper teams, mind you, but I still think they have a really good chance. Not to discount any other teams. If the Chargers don't make it, I would think it's going to come down to Cincinnati and the 49ers personally. Cincinnati's on like a 7-game win streak. The 49ers haven't lost since their bye. Both the teams, their offense is insane. Cincinnati might be the only team that can take down Kansas City in the AFC. And I hate Kansas City more than you know. Patrick Mahomes and Travis Kelce haunt me in my dreams to this day. So if my team's not going to take him out, I need to send somebody who can. And I don't want to jinx Bob's team, obviously. But, I mean, if they beat Baltimore and they get to move on to fight Kansas City and my team can't do it, I just hope they smack this tar out of them. But in the NFC, San Francisco, it's not even funny how good this team is. I'm not downplaying Philly because obviously they're at the top. And Minnesota is just clutch in like these game situations. It's unbelievable. It's like 11 or 13 wins in 1 game scores. Half their wins have come on game-winning drives. It's unbelievable. But the 49ers defense is like it's disgusting how good this defense is. It's built.
Yeah.
And their offense is no joke either. Aside from the fact you have Christian McCaffrey and Brandon Ayuk and Deebo Samuel and George Kittle, Brock Purdy is better than literally anyone imagined. I don't even think Brock Purdy's mom thought he would be this good in the NFL, to be honest. So if it's not going to be the Chargers, that's my bet. But put me on the record. I still believe in my team. I still think they can get it done.
I love it. I love it. All right, thanks,
Hey,
Tim.
imagine how good San Francisco is going to be next year with Tom Brady.
I'll tell you this, honestly. I believe they should stick with Brock Purdy for the little amount he is, find a deal for Trey Lance, and use the other money to bring in more protection for Brock Purdy. That's what I would do. If I could make magic happen, that's my plan. Tom Brady, I think, still going to Vegas. That was his original plan.
We'll see. I'm calling San Fran.
It could be.
Wow.
That's his childhood team, right?
Yep. Joe Montana. Joe Montana.
Very nice. Well, thank you, Tim. And of course, best of luck to your Chargers. I appreciate your input and your thoughts on the matchups. That's great. All right. Last but certainly not least, Darren has the Eagles. So, Darren, tell us about the first seed Philadelphia Eagles and the road ahead that they may be facing here in the coming weeks.
Steve, I got to be honest, I was getting a little bit worried about not getting this bye and getting the 1 seed with those last couple games that we had to play. But,
yes,
we fought really hard in those games, and, Gardner came in and did what he could possibly do for the team. I think he did an okay job. Very glad to see Jalen Hurts back last week. A lot of people complained about that game with the Giants, how, the play calling wasn't great, the defense wasn't great, but, we got in there, we did what we needed to do. We didn't get anybody else injured. We didn't show any of our, trick plays or anything like that for teams to film study. So glad that worked out. As far as getting the bye, I'm very glad that happened. There are, a lot of good teams in this NFC that I'd want to play and a lot that I wouldn't want to play. And, 49ers, obviously, Tim talking about them, is the team that we don't really want to see.
That's right.
Like he said, that defense is just elite. Christian McCaffrey is terrifying to any defense. I don't have as much faith as Tim and Brock Purdy, but I do believe in the weapons around him and in that Shanahan offense. The other teams would be, the Cowboys and the Vikings. I feel like we have a good chance against those teams. I'd like to see the Cowboys again, if I'm being honest, just so we can get that over with. Hopefully, that would be a really fun matchup to watch. And obviously, our Super Bowl run in 2018 against the Vikings, that would be a great rematch game as well. The teams I'm hoping to see would be the Giants. I feel like we can beat them pretty easily. I don't see that they have a good chance of winning this week, but you never know. And then the Seahawks, I just don't think that defense stops our offense, and I just don't see Geno Smith being able to do very much against our defense. And the last thing being the Bucs. I do think the Bucs have a good chance to beat the Cowboys this week. They have, I think, a 3.5 point spread. But I would like to see the Bucs again. It would be a rematch of last year, kind of in opposite roles, where the struggling teams coming in is the Bucs this time instead of the Eagles. And I think we can handle them as well.
Yeah, it was a pleasant surprise that the Eagles even made the playoffs in the first place last year, and then to have the turnaround, that just an absolute dominant season was fantastic. But I'm glad about what you said, the very first thing, like really glad to have the the first seed and the bye, because we had the opportunity against the Cowboys. Very close game, unbelievably entertaining game, just came up short. Then that just absolute brutal game against the Saints. Like, oh my word, I was just livid, but it's just understandable. It's just, you have to survive that game, and then then of course they took care of business against the Giants. But my biggest areas of concern for, and again, very grateful to have the week off, let Jalen Hurts Jalen Hurts rest up, but also just got to tighten up the offense a bit. Definitely came out a little flat against the Giants, so definitely got to shore that up and just hope that Lane Johnson is able to play. Not only be on the field, but also just be able to be the same Lane Johnson who just hasn't given up a
Sure.
sack in like 5 years or something. It's like ridiculous. He's just an amazing right tackle. So those would be my biggest areas of concern. It's funny. I actually don't want to face the Cowboys whatsoever, but if that's what it takes to get us through, then that's what's going to have to take. But yeah, my anxiety leading into that kind of a matchup would not be pleasant or anything I'd want to have to deal with. But yeah, it is definitely a good spot that the Eagles find themselves in, and I'm just really looking forward to seeing what kind of matchup will come out here for us. Really hoping that the Seahawks are able to pull an upset over the 49ers, but we will see. But yeah, so are you predicting that the Eagles will win the Super Bowl here, or who do you like overall, just from an unbiased perspective?
Very hard for me to be unbiased when it comes to the Eagles, but I did want to mention like us getting healthier is really going to help us this playoffs. Obviously, Jalen Hurts is back. We got C.J. Gardner-Johnson back. Hopefully, we got Lane Johnson back. I think Avonte Maddox has a chance to play. And obviously, you saw the impact of Dallas Goedert coming back immediately. As soon as he came back, it just looked like our offense was a different breed when he's in there. But I think it's going to come down to the Eagles and the 49ers in the NFC Championship. I really don't see another way around it.
Yep.
I'm ready to eat my words on that. They just seem like the two most dominant teams right now. And I feel like those are the teams that are going to get there. And then, I feel like it's going to be a coin flip matchup there. Either team could win that. Obviously, I think the Eagles are going to be going to the Super Bowl, and they're going to be facing their toughest competition in the Super Bowl, whether that's the Chiefs or the Bills. I think that's going to be the toughest team on the path to getting that Lombardi trophy. But that 49ers game, if that's the way it happens, that's going to be a 50-50 game, in my opinion.
Yeah, for sure. And of course, it is really nice to have the home field advantage as well. And in that case, the 49ers have to travel across the country. So, there's a lot of things going the Eagles' way. But again, it is a very scary team offensively and defensively. But yeah, but that's going to do it, guys. Appreciate you all being on. And best of luck to all your teams. Appreciate all your insight. And that's going to do it for part 1. And then stick around for part 2, which we'll be recording tomorrow. But fellas, Bob, Brandon, Tim, Dustin, and Darren, appreciate you being on. And best of luck, everybody.
Thank you.
Thanks, Steve.
Thank you.
Thanks, Steve.
Yep. Alrighty.
Go Birds.
That's that. Go Birds. Good luck, everyone, and keep climbing.
Go Bills.